Hi children, welcome back to our class. We continue with the fourth chapter, sorting materials into groups. And in the last class, we learned about three properties of materials like their appearance, hardness and solubility in water. Now we have two more properties to be discussed in today's class. Okay, so let's start. So our fourth property is floating and sinking property in water. Floating and sinking property of materials in water. So you know about materials which float in water on the top of water and the materials which sink in water. So can you give me examples of materials that sink into water and put these materials, they will sink, they will go down and settle at the bottom of the container. Give me examples of those materials that sink like glass, metals, then stone. All materials, all objects made of these materials, when you put it into water, they will sink. Now there are materials which float on the top of water like plastics, wood, rubber, etc. So some materials sink in water, some materials float on water. So sinking property and floating property. Actually this property is based on density of materials. Density. This about density you will learn in detail in physics. So what is density? Density is mass per unit volume of a substance. So whether an object is heavier or lighter than water, that decides whether an object sink in water or float in water. So this heavier and lighter, that doesn't depend purely on mass of the object. It is the ratio of mass to volume, mass per unit volume of the substance. So density is mass by volume. Now you just learned this. What is density? Mass divided by volume of the object. Mass by volume of the object is known as density. So materials whose density is higher than that of water, If the density of the material is higher than that of water, that means heavier objects, materials whose density is higher than that of water will sink. Okay, so the heavier objects, materials whose density is higher than that of water will sink in water. Now the next one is materials whose density is lesser than that of water, lower than that of water. What happens to them? They float. So what is density and how is density related to floating and sinking property of materials? Density is nothing but mass per unit volume of a substance. So we can write it as density is equal to mass by volume, mass divided by volume. And all objects, all materials that have density higher than that of water, heavier objects, they will sink in water. So examples of objects that sink in water are glass, stone, metals, etc. And all objects, all materials whose density is lesser than that of water, lower than that of water, that is lighter objects, they float on the top of water. Okay, examples are plastics, wood, rubber, etc. In the previous class, we learned about liquids which are insoluble in water like oil, kerosene, etc. So what about the density? The density is lesser than that of water. Oil, kerosene, etc. have density lesser than that of water. That is the reason why they float on the top of water without mixing with water. Okay, so that is floating and sinking property. I hope it is clear to you. Floating and sinking property is depending upon density, mass by volume. If density is higher than that of water, the material will sink, and if the density is lesser than that of water, the material will float. Examples for both you have to learn. Okay. Now we move on to the last property, fifth one, transparency. Okay, so hope you are playing hide and seek. You all play hide and seek. what type of places you choose to hide? Do you prefer to hide behind a glass door? No, definitely not. Why? Because the person can easily find you out. If you are hiding behind a door, the person can easily come and find you. Even standing on the other side of the door, he can find you. So, we never choose places like glass door to hide, because we can see through glass easily. Okay. So, based on transparency, we have three types of materials. One is transparent materials, materials through which things can be clearly seen. Materials through which things can be clearly seen are known as transparent materials. Examples are glass, then air. Air is a transparent material, that's why we are able to see each other. In between, all the empty spaces around us is filled with air. So, we can see each other because air is transparent. In between us there is air, but we can see clearly because air is transparent. Water also is transparent. So, materials through which things can be seen clearly. It is not materials that can be seen clearly. If your eyesight is correct, you can see all materials clearly. But materials through which, looking through that material, you should be able to see things clearly. That is the criterion for transparent materials. So, that is known as transparent materials. Examples are glass, air and water. Now, the second type is translucent materials. So, this is transparent. Second one is translucent. So, translucent materials are materials through which things can be seen but not clearly. Materials through which things can be seen but not clearly, they are known as translucent materials. Examples you may know, butter paper. The butter paper that we use in cake tins, inside cake tins for baking and all. You might have seen that paper. Or it can be called oiled paper. Oiled paper. Then frosted glass. Ordinary glass is transparent, but there is a special type of glass known as frosted glass. In the bathroom windows and doors, a special type of glass is used. We can see but not clearly. That is known as frosted glass. So, oiled paper or butter paper, then tracing paper is there. I hope you are familiar with tracing paper. That is also translucent. We can see but not clearly. It is known as translucent materials. These are examples. Now, the last type is opaque. Opaque materials are materials through which things cannot be. So, if you are looking through a glass door, a wooden door, can you see who is standing outside? No. So, materials through which things cannot be seen are known as opaque materials. Materials through which things cannot be seen are known as opaque materials. Examples are wood, cardboard, etc. Okay. So, based on transparency, we can classify materials into three types: transparent materials, translucent materials and opaque materials. Transparent materials are those through which things can be clearly seen. Materials through which, looking through those materials, we can see things clearly. Other things you can see clearly. They are known as transparent materials. Examples are glass, air and water. That's why when you go to shops, like when you go to a bakery, all the eatable items are kept in glass bottles. Why? Only then people will be able to see those items and they can buy. Buyers can see those items, can buy and buy only if they are stored in glass containers which are transparent. Okay. So, through transparent materials, light passes completely. Light passes completely through transparent materials. That's why we are able to see through them clearly. Okay. Light passes completely through such materials. Okay. Now, the second one is translucent materials. Materials through which things can be seen but not clearly are known as translucent materials. Materials through which things can be seen but not clearly. Oil paper or butter paper, tracing paper, frosted glass, a kind of glass through which full vision is not possible. Clear vision is not possible. That is known as frosted glass. Okay. So, light passes through such materials but not completely. They are known as translucent. Now, the third one is opaque materials. Materials through which things cannot be seen are known as opaque materials. So, light do not pass through such materials. Examples are wood and cardboard. Okay. So, that is the end of this topic, and with that fourth chapter, sorting materials into groups, is over. Thank you, children.